welcome. It has taken me so long to put this video together. It was the first thing I started with when I started working on this Ravenna cosplay a month ago, I think, and I just keep getting delayed. The base dress without the sleeves was actually super easy to put together. It took me probably a couple of hours, but I wound up having to remake it because I had a horrible reaction to the fabric that I originally chose. But the sleeves, dear Lord, the sleeves, they took forever. And realistically, it's mostly because of poor planning on my part. I thought they would be a bit simpler and they wound up not being simple, and I kept running out of materials. But I'm finally done with the base dress. So first, I'm going to start with a breakdown of the costume itself, and then I'm going to go into materials list, and then actually get into the crafting a little later in the video. So if this is the kind of content you like, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions, of course, put them down in the comments below. So this really should have been the first video that I made, since it is the foundation of this costume, but and it was the first part that I started with, but because of all of my delays, I moved on to other pieces of the costume as I was waiting for materials to arrive. But my initial breakdown of this costume, this skull dress of Snow White, this skull dress of Ravenna's from Snow White and the Huntsman, is that there is this silver underdress that is the basis of which everything is built upon. There is a black overskirt. There is a corset that appears to be late 1700s inspired. And there are, of course, the sleeves, but it's not just the sleeves of the silver dress. It also has these sleeve poofs and drapes. So my plan was to start with the silver underdress and, work from the bottom up. I wanted this to be a relatively quick build. I didn't really want to do a lot of patterning on my own because I need this by early January, and I started this in mid to late November, so I didn't really have a ton of time to pull this off. So I remembered from back when this movie released, there used to be a commercial pattern that was loosely based off of the costumes of the movie, as like Simplicity and McCall's do. And I found that pattern and saw that there was one that was somewhat inspired by the dress I wanted to make, and I went ahead and purchased that. Next, it was choosing fabric. So I saw that there was a little bit of texture within the silver, so I decided to choose what I think it's a damask, and if I can find my order confirmation, I'll make sure to put it somewhere up here so that you can see where I ordered it from. I had my first, I think, allergic reaction to this fabric. It made my entire body itch. Like, I would be sewing with it and it would be on my arms, but the itching would spread onto my neck and face, and it was just a horrible experience. And on top of it, it had this horrific smell, and no matter how much I washed it, that smell would not go away. So I've used damask before. The trim of my free rent skirt is made with damask, and I've never had an issue like this. It did seem a bit lower in quality compared to the damask that's on my free rent costume, but it was horrible. I'm like, there's no way on earth that I'm going to be able to wear this dress with this fabric. So I did have to go out and try to find something else as quickly as I can. So I went to Joann's and found this beautiful satin, very metallic, and it had this texture in it that I thought fit quite nicely with the costume. So I went ahead and purchased that, and I threw away the other dress. But the early parts of the crafting will be me working with the original fabric, because I did not re-record the remaking of that dress in the actual satin. I just didn't think there was a need to, but when I do the initial try on, I am wearing the new satin. So next is the sleeves. So the sleeves are the most complicated part of this base dress. I thoroughly underestimated the amount of work that needed to go into these sleeves. There's so much work in the sleeves alone. It is just, I feel like she needs her day on stage. Like, I don't really care if she places or wins anything, because I used a commercial pattern and I used 3D print files that I did not make, but I think she deserves her day on stage. So I very well may walk Ravenna in a costume contest somewhere. But these sleeves, so I used the initial silver fabric, of course, so that it matched the rest of the dress. They needed a lining because that fabric does not hold its shape on its own, so I used just a plain standard cotton, like black cotton, and stitched the silver to that to stabilize it. And then in the film, you get one scene where it's up close and the light is on her and you can see those sleeves quite nicely. So you can see that there's some sort of like lace detail that's wrapping around the sleeve itself all the way up. So I could not find any ribbon that matched, or lace that matched that detail. So I sort of did my own thing and found this beautiful black and silver jacquard ribbon on Amazon and decided to go ahead and use that instead. Actually, I have some right here. It has the sheen to it that I thought would go quite nicely with the silver paint of the front of the corset and the silver buttons and all the rest of the sparkle detailing I'm doing on this. So I went with this. However, it is a bit stiff, which I will get into a little bit later in the video, but this is the ribbon that I decided to use. I wound up needing 3 packs of it, so 15 yards to cover the sleeves. I also needed white bias tape and black bias tape. I used a 1/2 inch double fold white bias tape for the hem of the dress and 1/4 inch black bias tape for anything that was going to be visible, so the edging of the sleeves. Additionally, the sleeves have a poof, which you can see better in the next scene where she's sitting on her throne in this dress, and they have like a sleeve drape that's black, and you can barely see a little bit of sparkle on the edging of that sleeve, which is a detail that I will be doing in the next video. But I decided to make the poof and the drape out of the same fabric that I made the overskirt out of for consistency's sake. It just made sense, and I had a ton of it left over. I'm pretty sure that was just like a pretty standard chiffon. And on the sleeves, there's a ton of buttons that go all the way up the inner seam, everywhere that lace sort of connects at the seam. So I found some silver buttons on Amazon. I am still waiting for the rest of them to arrive, so those will be in the next video as well. And then some elastic for the connectors. So I think that's all the materials I needed to just make the base dress. So with that, we can get on into the actual construction. Oh, but before we do, I do want to give one note. So this entire build is definitely a trust the process kind of build. All the pieces individually look a little not super great on their own, except for the corset. The corset, I'm very proud of that corset. I feel like everything just feels a little lackluster on its own. However, once I put all the pieces together, I think this is going to look pretty dramatic. So I'm very excited to see it all together. You will not see it all together in this particular video. I will have that in the next one after I finish all the detailing. So I know it's been a bit weird seeing these other videos pop up, and you know, like the overskirt's just this plain black skirt that ties, you know, in the front. It's just this plain black skirt that ties in the front, but once that's on and the waist is under the corset over the silver dress, I think it's gonna look really nice, especially once I get the rest of the detailing onto it. So we're gonna do a reveal hopefully in the next video, but so right now this dress will look a little weird at the end because it is base silver with very dramatic sleeves, but trust the process, we will get there in the end. So with that, let's hop on over to how I made the dress. So the first clips are with the fabric I wound up scrapping, but it's pretty simple. I just cut out the pattern according to the instructions and cut it out of the fabric and sewed it together without the sleeves. For the new fabric, I made sure to keep the texture vertical to better match what I could see in the movie. And I did decide to bias bind the top and bottom hem in white bias tape. It's just what I happened to have on hand at the time. This satin is a bit delicate, so the bias tape will help protect the edges from wear and tear. It'll all be hidden behind the details anyway. So once I tried this on and I liked the fit, it was time for the sleeves. I did line these sleeves in a plain black cotton to stabilize the satin prior to adding the details on top. So I took the silver and black jacquard ribbon and lined it up with the bottom of the sleeve, starting at the wrist and working my way up to the top. I made sure to leave a little space between the ribbons for 2 reasons. 1, it matches the design, and 2, most importantly, it will leave some flex to the sleeve since the ribbon is pretty stiff. I also made sure that the diamond details alternated. I just thought that it looked really nice this way. And when I did the second sleeve, I made sure every ribbon lined up on that sleeve with the placement of the other sleeve so that they look the same. I then stitched each ribbon in place at the top and bottom, and then trimmed the excess off to reform the sleeve into its correct shape. I folded these in half, right sides together, and then stitched and set this aside. Next, I patterned out the sleeve poof. This is actually incredibly easy. I took the original sleeve pattern and determined how far down on the arm I wanted it to be. Then I essentially just tripled the width. I freehanded this onto some computer paper to make the pattern, gathered it on my machine, then adjusted the gathers so that it fit the correct width of the sleeve pattern at the top and the bottom. I then ran a straight stitch through the gathers to secure them in place and fray checked all of the edges. Once dry, I sewed the short edges of the poof together using a French seam. After that, I then patterned the sleeve drape. I used the original pattern as a starting point to get the width of the top. Based on the images, it needed to be opened a little bit, so I just used the original width and then shortened it by a couple of inches. I traced this onto computer paper and then freehanded the shape of the drape, making sure it would go nearly to the floor. I cut this out of the same sheer fabric, serged the edges, and wrapped them in 1/4 inch bias tape. Next, I lined up the center of the drape to the seam of the poof, pinned that together, and sewed it together, creating one poofy drapey sleeve. I then took the base sleeve with the ribbon on it, slid it through the poof, and lined up the top of the poof to the top of the sleeve and sewed this together. I did not at this time sew the bottom of the poof to the sleeve. I pinned the sleeves to the base dress and stitched them together. So now it was time for a try on, and I was very nervous, but I was super happy with how it fit. I do have plenty of finishing touches to do on this. The sleeve poofs need to be adjusted up a little bit and stitched into place, and the sleeves need to be adjusted, but all in all, for my first try on, I'm very, very happy. Just some finishing touches and some final fit. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there's some final things that I need to do to this dress. So the sleeves are not completely done. The dress itself is not completely done. There's the top detailing and the detailing on the hem, but also the sleeves themselves are not fully done. I need to sew on all of the buttons all the way up the sleeve. So I have purposefully left the bottom of the poof loose and a little wider than it should be so that I can roll it up and get in there to sew the buttons on that are going to be under the poof. So once I have the buttons on, I'll be able to tack stitch the bottom part of that poof in place. I'm going to lift it up a little high so that the bulk of the poof comes out and then drapes under. That it'll sort of hide that little bit of it'll have a little gaping there. It'll hide it quite nicely, I think. So I still need to do that. Buttons, of course, and then the elastic to actually close it. And I actually do need to shorten the sleeves by about 2 inches. I didn't think about that when I was making this. The pattern itself is specifically to be on the shoulder, but I'm pushing it off the shoulder, which makes the sleeves a little too long. So I'm just gonna roll those up and stitch those in place. So I'm not too terribly concerned about that. I did want to post this video hopefully on time, and then get into the little details that I do to finish it later. Oh, and then there's some sparkle and stuff that I need to do. So in my next video, I want to detail out the top part, which is a bit more complicated than you would think. So I think it's gonna be a very interesting video, and then go over the little bits that I think I'm going to add later. And then after that, it'll just be the crown and the wig, and I think we can call her done. So I'm hoping to push through most of this next week. I was unfortunately delayed this past week because I had a 4-day migraine before they gave me some medication, which took away the pain but left the other symptoms of the migraine for the last day and a half. So today's the first day where I'm feeling mostly normal. So I did lose out on quite a bit of time last week. So this is just becoming a much longer process than I wanted. I still want to make my Cosmos tea party dress. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to pull that off in time for Animate Raleigh, and if I can't, then it will debut at the next convention that I attend. So it will get its debut, I just don't know where yet. It's a pretty simple build. It should not take me very long, but I really want to finish Ravenna, and I'm really excited to get this one done. So with that, if you want to follow my progress and see other videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, make sure to put them down in the comment section below. And with that, I will see you in my next video. Bye.